Today we've got a crazy traumatizing revenge story on a manager who messed with the wrong employee. We'll get into that in a bit, but first... Oh, so we're touching? This happened on New Year's when I was out making a quick store run with my kids. I'm about 5 months pregnant with my third currently. I'm not really showing much yet and kind of just look bloated. But anyway, I was pushing my son and my daughter was walking along beside me as I picked up some baby items. I was on the phone with my husband discussing baby stuff and an older woman walked up to me and said, "I'm sorry, but I overheard. I'm happy for you. God bless you." I smiled and said thank you and carried on, thinking it was sweet. Wrong. Later, when I was checking out, I was talking to the cashier about baby stuff and the same woman was in line behind me. She pushed my son's wheelchair out of the way and shoved herself in front of me and said, "Sorry, I just have to." And she proceeded to touch and rub my belly. I was angry but had my sleeping daughter in my arms and my son had rolled away to play with the arcade machine they have in the store, so I just blinked and touched her belly back with dead silence. "How disrespectful of you to touch me. I'm not touching you, I'm touching your baby," she said angrily while still touching. I pushed her hand away and moved myself out of the way and said, "Oh, I could have dealt with you touching me, but touching 2 of my children without my consent? I could call the police," I say, and by this point I am fuming and a manager comes over and makes sure I'm okay. I explain the situation and the lady starts almost screaming, "But she touched me. She can't touch me. She's pregnant. I was touching the baby," and more while she was escorted out of the store. My kids were both fine, and the manager gave me the things I was buying for free, so I gave the money I would have spent to the cashier, who was very sweet and helpful. Crazy lady, honestly. You know, I'll admit, I haven't been around very many pregnant people, but unless the baby is actively kicking, can you even really feel much of anything? Basically, what I'm saying is, I do not get her argument of, "Well, I'm just touching the baby, by the way, it's not like I'm touching you." Like, yeah, no big deal, just go ahead and feel up her baby bump, no problem, it's just all about touching the baby. Nutty Nana Bread commented, "Kinda reminds me of when my son came home from the hospital. He was uber preemie, 24 weeks, spent 4 months in the NICU, came home on oxygen. He once got a UTI while in NICU and it almost ended him because it took them so long to figure out what was going on. Anyways, when I got home, inevitably I had to take him out of the house. I had to lug oxygen with his car seat and I put a sign on his car seat that said, 'Your germs are too big for me, please don't touch.' People always tried, so I started keeping spray bottles of water and every time someone would approach, I would say, 'Yes, he's cute, but don't touch him, he was born super early and if he gets sick, he could die.' And when they reached for him, I would spray their hands. They would all either freeze or draw their hands back quickly and be like, 'Why did you spray me?' I was like, 'If you want to try and endanger my child's life, I'm gonna spray you. And if you try again, I'm gonna spray your face.' Most of them were like, 'I just wanted to see him or say hello.' And I was like, 'Well, we don't need our hands to see or say hello.' Some people got mad and I was just like, 'If you want to call the cops, be my guest. Because I'm pretty sure they'll take my side once they hear you were told not to touch my child and you still tried to.' They would just roll their eyes and walk away. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy traumatizing revenge stories, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. Our next story is, I thought my mom was deceased. So I was a very good student in high school who never did anything I wasn't supposed to. One day, my mom, who had a lot of scary medical conditions that doctors couldn't figure out, was taken away in an ambulance I had to call before school. She told me I had to go to school anyway and not to worry about her. I was very worried. Her symptoms mimicked a stroke. Turns out she was having hemiplegic migraines, but I thought she was having a stroke. I went to school as she requested. She was in the hospital enough at the time for her to not want it to disrupt my education. But I was very freaked out, and each period I told my teacher what was happening so they could understand why I wasn't my normal self. During algebra, my teacher got a call saying I needed to go to the office, but they wouldn't tell me why. I saw it on her face that she also assumed that my mom had passed on. I'm walking down the hallway trying to hold it together and convince myself my mom isn't gone. I look around each corner, thinking I'm about to see my sister also walking to the office. I get there, and I have to wait for them to call me in. There are students who are there waiting too because they're in trouble. I begin to sob, which makes them come get me quicker. "You aren't in trouble, don't cry," the principal says. "My mom is dead, isn't she?" I sob. The principal is gobsmacked. "What? No, I don't know anything about your mom. We called you in here to give you a commendation for being a kind student with good grades." Essentially, they thought it would be funny to make the good kids think they were getting in trouble only to be getting an award. I sat in her office crying for 4 hours straight, and also made them call my algebra teacher to explain that my mom wasn't gone, cause I could tell she was worried about it too. I never heard of them pulling that prank on kids ever again. I will say, I do feel like this is the kind of thing that has decent intentions, that is kind of something that's easy to oversee not only a situation like OP's, but also overlooking the fact that not every kid is going to be able to handle this in a healthy way. You know, some of those kids that they're bringing in there made to feel like they've done something wrong and they're about to get punished, that easily could be needless trauma inflicted on them. Cool Salary 2533 commented, "My principal did a similar thing when my brother was in the hospital for a while, except he came to the classroom and said very seriously, 'Name, I need to speak to you outside.'" I was pretty emotionally battered by that point, so I got up, went out with him, and asked, "Is he dead?" His face instantly dropped, and he reassured me that he just wanted to tell me my scholarship application had been accepted, gave me the envelope, and scurried back to his office. I'll never understand why people think that kind of bait and switch is amusing. Our next story is, "No, I won't change my mind." When I, female 17, at the time, sat in biology class, the topic of having children came up. My biology teacher was talking to us like pregnancy would be something all assigned female at birth people would experience at some point. And she asked me some question about it, I don't remember what, but I replied that it doesn't matter to me because I won't have kids. It's been more than 6 years and the conversation wasn't in English, so I'm paraphrasing, but the conversation went kinda like me saying, "I won't have any kids." The teacher saying, "Of course you will at some point." I say, "But I don't want any." She replies, "You'll change your mind." I say, "No, I won't." She replies, "You will. No one your age really wants kids. That'll change when you grow up." I tell her it won't. She says, "Even if it's not on purpose, it can happen on accident." I tell her, "It won't happen on accident." She says, "Why do you think accidents can't happen to you?" And I tell her, "I'm gay." Suddenly, she dropped the conversation like a hot potato. I felt a bit awkward, but vindicated. There were like 15 other students in the room, but they either already knew or didn't care. I never made a secret of it, and my classmates were all quite accepting, so there was nothing to worry about. On the topic of kids, I still don't want any. It's a combination of the fact that a child would completely uproot my life, and pregnancy seems horrifying to me. I have no desire for raising kids, and I don't think that having kids, just because it's expected, is a good thing to do. I don't mind if others have kids, that's their decision, just like it's mine to not have any. I have a feeling that my post shows that I have this discussion on a regular basis. It's exhausting sometimes. People should just mind their own business. You know, this discussion, and especially what OP said towards the end of their post, kind of reminded me of something I saw on social media recently. I think it was on Twitter or something, just some random tweet that kind of had some kind of traction that was like, "All of y'all adults that post on here that you're bored don't have kids, and it shows." And then I saw a follow-up reply to that, which really stuck with me, that was like, "If you're having kids because you're bored, you're having them for the wrong reason." Susan95 commented, "People really need to stop being in others' business. It's strange that a lot of people assume that kids is everybody's goal in life." Our next story is, "My parents found the Yaoi." Hello, this is my first official Reddit post, brought to you by the many Reddit story YouTubers I've watched in my severe need to overshare. I don't know if this will get any traction, but it seemed way too funny to not share in hindsight. The incident in question happened like an hour ago. My parents found the sketchbook Yaoi. Okay, so I frequently draw some freaky stuff. I'm a freaked out gay loser. It's normal. I don't normally draw anything too explicit, but if someone looked at any other given page of my sketchbook, they just might see a nude man. Sometimes I pull the anatomy practice excuse, but that's not always doable. Enough stalling though. It's New Year's Eve, and I'm in my room working on a New Year's drawing. It's a mostly nude angel, nothing too risque, no genitalia. My mom comes in to check on me, and I'm a little too slow to close my sketchbook, so she sees it. She has a few questions, which I answer as calmly as possible, and then she says that she wants to see more art. Oh crap. I'm actively telling her no, pretty much begging her not to look, but I don't have the best track record of being the best son ever. It's fair enough that she would be suspicious. However, it's a freaking sketchbook? Literally, what do you expect to see in there? My mom grabs a sketchbook, and I'm still trying to close it, like, girl, back off. Enter a new character, my dad. He posts up on my bed, eating blue Takis on my white sheets, already kind of annoying, but generic dad behavior. My mom explains the situation, and he's immediately a little more assertive. He's demanding to see the sketchbook as well to make sure that I'm not doing anything I'm not supposed to. Eventually, I just kind of give up and let them have it. They're clearly not gonna back off, so what more can I do? And what better punishment is there for snooping through a notebook without permission than a face full of gay, not safe for work art? Now, remember how I said that not all of it is entirely freaked out? Well, I was telling the truth. Not all of it is. However, when my parents are looking through my entire sketchbook, they're bound to catch a few things that they likely didn't want to see. I would have laughed my butt off if I wasn't so embarrassed. I literally had to explain what bottoming is to my poor parents. I love my parents to death, but this invasion of privacy was pretty uncalled for. Hopefully they never look through my sketchbook again. If they do, well, I don't exactly plan on stopping with the yaoi art. So, just in case anybody is curious what yaoi means and they're not sure, it's a Japanese term that basically means media, videos, drawings, storylines, whatnot, centered around two guys. So, yeah, take that as you will. Here's the thing though, it doesn't sound like the parents were too bothered by what they saw. I mean, if they allowed it to get to the point where OP is explaining concepts that they drew to their parents, it's not like they slammed it shut and they were like, never mind, I'll never look again. Unistrut commented, don't look through a keyhole and then complain when you get stabbed in the eye with a key. Our next story is, creepy bar guy gets traumatized. For some context, I had my right leg amputated below the knee 5 years ago after suffering my whole life with a congenital bone defect in my right leg. I use a prosthetic and get on well with it a lot of the time. I use a pin lock prosthetic and have to use prosthetic stocks to bulk my stump out because the silicone liner makes my stump hot and makes it shrink. Anyway, on Saturday, I was at my local pub and was getting into the Christmas spirit. My partner and I are friends with the landlords, so we were sat with them and some other friends happily getting drunk and singing karaoke. I was looking great in a pinstripe jumpsuit and chunky heeled boots. I have a specific leg for heels. Every time I go to get a drink, these two guys would try engaging me in conversation. Now, you know how you can just tell someone is a complete idiot? These guys gave off that vibe before they even tried speaking to me. After that, every time they opened their mouths, something douchey came out. Can't really remember what, but enough for me to just ignore their presence. At about midnight, I was coming in from a smoke and, unfortunately, had to pass them to get back to my table. I was limping because I needed to add an extra sock to my stump. As I passed them, one of the guys says very condescendingly to me, "Oh, what's the matter? Do your ankles hurt?" with this smug, crap-eating grin on his face. Without missing a beat, I turned slightly towards them and lifted up my right trouser leg without saying a word and show him my prosthetic, and drop my trouser leg back down. I heard him say, "Oh crap, I'm so sorry," as he turns towards the bar and tries to melt into it. His friend went white as a ghost too. I just walked off, still not having said a word to them. I've been dying for something like this to happen ever since I got my first prosthetic, and daydreaming about what I would do if it ever happened. I unfortunately didn't come up with this idea on my own, but got the idea from an entitled parents video one of my favorite YouTubers did a while ago. It took 5 years, but it finally happened, and it was amazing. I love the dude's reaction. I love them being bewildered. I love them not wanting to face the situation, immediately turning around. But I almost wonder what would happen if it was actually completely in reverse. What if, for whatever reason, it didn't faze that guy and they just doubled down? Voampage commented, "Back when I was a teenager, I was in a big symphonic band. The conductor was some flavor of idiot, and one day he stops us and rounds on the second trombone. Steve, you're completely off from Erica, the first trombone. What are you, deaf in your left ear?" "Yes," was Steve's reply, and the entire band lost it. The director lost all his bluster for the rest of that rehearsal. Our next story is, watching someone burst into tears is traumatizing, right? This happened a few days ago and everything still feels like a raw, hemorrhaging wound. So I guess this is a vent as much as anything else. My cat passed on Friday. A painful decision, but she was old and clearly suffering. My husband thought that trying to pursue some sense of routine afterwards might help, so we still went grocery shopping over the weekend, as opposed to asking sympathetic friends or family to do the pickups for us, while we both wallowed in how wrong everything feels without her. So I'm in the grocery store with a loaf of bread in one hand and the other swiping around the back of the shelf, because I need cosmic brownies to eat my feelings, and it was starting to look like there weren't any left. I saw a lady approaching with her shopping cart, so I took a step back and apologized for being in the way. Now, I live in a town where people are really good at minding their own dang business. So I was caught off guard when this lady looked at me and said, "It can't be that bad." I kind of stared at her blankly and she goes on, "You need to cheer up. It's almost Christmas. You should be getting into the spirit of the holiday instead of moping around." I wish I thought of this sub and said something snarky or rattled off all of the things my cat had been through with me. Instead, I was blunt force traumatized with the realization that she wouldn't be around for Christmas. Like, I was distinctly aware of the upcoming holiday, but I didn't really grasp the reality of it until this lady threw it in my face. Anyways, I started crying. The high-pitched, whiny kind that has hiccups and gross wet sniffles. I was too upset to be mortified at committing such a gross display of emotion in public. The lady must have also been horrified because I heard her stammer something of an apology before she disappeared. That's where my husband found me, still blubbering in the snack aisle like a lost child. 0 out of 10, awful experience, do not recommend. This is not the first time I've heard a story where a person goes, "Come on, it's not that bad." How can you look at somebody who is clearly going through something and just say, "It can't be that bad"? Oh, come on, turn that frown upside down. I think I would have had half a mind to get real nasty. Jenny Poo commented, "The audacity of policing a stranger's emotions in the bread aisle is honestly impressive in the worst way." Our next story is, Ableist Manager messed with the wrong employee. For anyone that didn't see my previous post, I'm disabled, living with chronic pain, and limited mobility. I walk with a cane and need a sit-stand accommodation at work. Just over 7 years ago, I landed a job in my desired field, but the organization would not be ready for me to start for a couple of months. I was between jobs. I'd been working for a retail chain that had scaled back its number of stores, including the ones where I'd worked, so I looked for some work to do until my new position opened up. I ended up taking a job at a grocery store near my home as a cashier. During the job interview, I disclosed my need to use my cane throughout the workday and to have a chair at the register. The interviewer indicated that that wouldn't be a problem. I show up for my first day of work, and there's no chair for my register. I end up speaking to the assistant store manager. She tells me that the usual policy is employees can't have chairs in the register space because a customer could trip over the chair, that it's a liability issue. I ask her, "The chair that's behind the register, where customers do not go? Seriously?" She tells me she'll shift me to a register in the liquor department, where there's more space behind the register, and find me a chair. I walk over to the machine for punching in and out. She asks what I'm doing. I tell her that I'm paid hourly, don't want to waste any of the store's money, can't work without the chair, so I'm punching out until there's a chair behind that register for me. She smirks a bit before walking off and getting me my chair. I punch back in and return to work. After a couple of days of working in the liquor department, in my chair, the new schedule has me working one of the main store registers. I come in, prepare to get my chair or get moved back to liquor, but before I can start working, I get told my department manager would like to speak with me. In this meeting, the department manager asks me about why I was demanding a chair. I explain the situation. She tells me that I'll no longer be provided a chair. I reiterated that I'm disabled and I need the chair as a workplace accommodation. She proceeds to tell me, clearly you don't know how that law works. She then says that accommodations aren't for people like you. They're for things like people that need wheelchairs or pregnant women that can't work standing up. She then takes it even further. Not only do we not have to give you a chair, we could say that you're not allowed to use that cane while you're here. I tell her that she's wrong, that the store needs to provide a reasonable accommodation of my condition, and that I will not work without a chair. She tells me, then you can just go home. So I did. The next day, I was scheduled for another shift. I came in and sought out the assistant store manager. I'd have gone to the store manager, but he wasn't in that day. I proceeded to tell the manager about the meeting I'd had with the department head, and then I explained something I hadn't mentioned before. When I became disabled, there were several years I couldn't do much walking at all. I had to drop out of college, I had to quit my job, I was stuck laying around with a whole lot of spare time. But my legs were messed up, my brain wasn't, so I devoted that time to studying several subjects to keep myself from going stir-crazy. One of the first, since I knew it would be relevant moving forward, was disability law. I'm not some kid just entering the workforce, unaware of their rights. I know the Americans with Disabilities Act inside and out. I know the processes for filing a complaint and a lawsuit for disability discrimination. In fact, I did it once before. I won that case, and I would win this one too. But as long as we can get this worked out, here's what I'm willing to do. I'll refrain from suing the store. We both know that I'm only here for a couple of months before moving on to other things. I would prefer to focus on that. From here on out, I get my chair. I get to use my cane at all times. And no one treats me like that ever again. Also, you may want to give reasonable accommodations to anybody else that's been asking for them. If folks see my chair and start asking why I got it when their disability wasn't accommodated, I'm going to explain their rights to them and teach them how to file a discrimination claim, and they'll win too. Also, please talk with department manager. You got lucky that she pulled that crap with me, someone who wouldn't take immediate legal action. But if she pulled that with another disabled person, you may not be so lucky. We tend to make it a point to learn our rights. Her ignorance of the law, or perhaps her willingness to lie to my face about it, pointlessly opened up the company to a ton of liability. With as cruel as she was about it, I wouldn't be surprised if she's done it before and would do it again. Also, I feel it's necessary to inform you that after I won my previous case, corporate stepped in and fired the managers that had refused to accommodate my disability. So I think it's in everyone's best interest to keep things from going that far. I was provided my chair for that shift. When I came in the next day, not only did I have my chair, but another employee that had apparently been pushing to get one had hers as well. And the department manager, despite being on the schedule, was not there. I asked around. Turns out that while they didn't fire her, they transferred her to a different store where no management positions were available. If she wanted to have a job, she had to take a non-managerial spot. The store was in a distant suburb of our home city. It's clear they were trying to get her to resign rather than canning her, which isn't the most ethical way of handling things, but that wasn't my problem. If she didn't want to lose her manager job, maybe she shouldn't have been an ableist. This story gets to the heart of an argument that I've seen other people make and I agree wholeheartedly with. Why can't cashiers have chairs? Why is it a bad look that the person who is accommodating you at the register can sit down? Never in my life, if I was checking out and I saw a cashier sitting at the register, would I think, oh, that person's lazy. Chronic Ill Knitter commented, "Thank you for standing up not only for you, but for the others at this store. Too many people are not aware of their rights. I suffer from something similar or the same. Chronic pain, use a wheelchair or cane, and have a lot of trouble with my memory, so I find it hard to stand up to people because I can't remember specific laws." Our next story is, "My grief is none of your business." I was driving to my dying mother a few years ago and had just gotten the news that she passed away about 4 hours into the 8-hour drive. I'd been out of cell range in the mountains, so I found out in a voicemail from my sister and hadn't spoken to anyone at this point. I pulled into a gas station off the highway to process and find an area with decent cell reception to call my sister. I haven't spoken out loud to anyone since learning my mom was gone, and I'm sort of dazed. I went into the attached mini-mart to wash my face, buy some Kleenex and coffee for the road. It wasn't like I was sobbing, but it was probably obvious that I had been crying. A woman stepped in front of me, physically blocking me, and said, "Whatever you're bawling about, it's not worth it." Without thinking, I put my handful of snotty fast food napkins I'd brought in to throw away into her hand and said, "My mother died 15 minutes ago. Can you get out of the way?" I don't remember paying or leaving the store or driving the rest of the way home, but I remember those brown wet napkins in her frozen hand. No idea why I did it, but my mother would have laughed her butt off. So, very much similar to the Cosmic Brownie story. And again, if I were in OP's position, I would be afraid of how much I would flip out on somebody like that. I mean, you're in a gas station in the highway when you're saying that to some person. You don't know what turmoil or terrible thing they've been through for you to look at them in their face and say, "It's not worth it." Like, it's almost like they think they're gonna be able to reach out and put a hand on your shoulder and somehow magically heal you. Do not shed those tears, for they are not worth it. Thanks, Susan. I'm healed. Dinko from the North commented, "You showed the decency to ask her to move." Wow, that she definitely didn't deserve. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy traumatizing revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.